was educated at the University College of London from September 2005 to June of 2008. That is him wearing that T-shirt there, being escorted off the plane. He went through normal security procedures in Amsterdam, meaning he was rescreened there, and had been granted a multiple-year, multiple-entry tourist visa at the U.S. Embassy in London. That was in June of 2008. Now, while he's not believed to be on any no-fly list, his name does appear in a U.S. database of people with suspect connections. This may be why. His father retired as chairman of First Bank in Nigeria, and we're learning that it was his father who contacted the U.S. Embassy in Nigeria a few weeks ago. Seems his father was concerned that his son had become radicalized and could be planning something. Abdulmutallab was formally charged today in a hospital room. CNN senior international correspondent Nick Robertson is in London with the latest on this investigation, which includes a search of this man's latest residence. Nick.
Well, Drew, until the summer of 2008, it's believed that Abdulmutallab was living in a ground floor basement apartment here belonging to his father, an affluent Nigerian banker. That was when he completed his university degree in mechanical engineering, and according to his family, that was when he told his family he wanted to go on and study in Saudi Arabia, study in Egypt. And it was also at that time, June 2008, when he was given at the U.S. Embassy here in London a multiple entry visa for the United States. It's not clear when he last stayed in the apartment building, but it was U.S. authorities that tipped off the British police this morning, and counter-terrorism police began their search of the premises here about 10-12 hours ago. They began by going in forensic suits, if you will, so as not to contaminate a potential crime scene. But later in the day, we've seen police officers, counter-terrorism police officers, coming and going to this apartment in regular police clothing. And I think perhaps that gives us an indication there that it's not, if you will, an active crime scene in the apartment they're searching. And perhaps another indication of what is happening here is a development that took place in the last hour. The police suspended their search in this apartment building. They say that they will return in the morning. This tape here that's flapping behind me, the police tape to keep people out of the area. There are police securing this building overnight, although residents will be allowed back in. But this does seem to indicate that the police are not working on any, if you will, hot leads that might lead to information that could prevent another terror attack. The fact that they've paused their search overnight does seem to indicate that this will be a slow search and that there's nothing there that's going to give, that needs to be sort of collected, rounded up and passed on tonight, if you will. Drew?
Nick, I want you to stand by in London. I'm going to come back to you for a couple of questions, but I want to go to Deb Farrick. She is on the phone from Ann Arbor, I believe, and has details on this court appearance, this rather odd court appearance from the suspect's hospital room that just took place. Deb?
Well, Drew, the young man was brought into a conference room, actually, where U.S. attorneys were waiting along with members of the Federal Defender's Office to represent him. A judge was in the room at the time. A pool reporter who was there described him as very, very young, baby-faced almost, and very slender, very slight, and that's what surprised them the most. He was handcuffed to a wheelchair. He was wearing a green hospital gown. His two thumbs were bandaged, as was his one of his hands, his right hand. Now, according to one of the pool reporters, he spoke English, seemed to understand what was going on around him. The judge asked him how he was doing. He responded that he was doing better today, quote unquote. His lawyer asked for the ability to search the plane that he was on in order to gather evidence of their own. Also raised the possibility of skin grafts for this young man. Now, we are also told that, in fact, he is being kept in the burn unit. There were several FBI agents with him, that he is under guard, and the charges were read against him. And again, he seemed to understand everything that was going on. Now, according to the affidavit...
Deb, can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah, please, go.
We are going to hear from In fact, I see you there, this news conference from the pool reporters. Let's hear exactly what they had to say. These are the reporters who were in the room.
Obvious signs that there was, some kind of medical damage or some kind of burns to him.
Right
The rest of it was covered up.
One more time, right thumb and forefinger.
And then the right index finger, and there's a little bit around his wrist too, but I don't know if that was just from the bandages on. And he wasn't, grimacing in pain or anything. He sat there very pleasantly. He spoke English. He told
This is raw video of a news conference just held outside the Detroit hospital.
U.S. Assistant District Attorney that he was feeling much better than he was feeling the day before. And they asked him how he was today, and he said he felt better. At one point, they asked him if he could afford his own attorney or if he needed, counsel to be appointed to him, and it took a little while to explain that to him what that meant. But he said he did not get far, and he could not afford his own attorney. And outside of federal courts that represented him.
From the Federal Defender's Office? Okay. Do you know what the name of that person is?
Yep. It was Eric Sprout, S-T-R-A-U-S. Eric, E-R-I-C, was the assistant unit.
All right, Deb, if you're still there, one interesting thing I did hear, the suspect said he couldn't afford an attorney. I'm supposing that he's got a federally appointed attorney, but he comes from a very wealthy family.
He does. It appears, however, that when he went on this particular journey, that he separated from his family, texting his family that he was going off to Dubai. His father clearly concerned that this young man had been radicalized, didn't know whether, in fact, he'd been in touch with certain elements. But we are told, according to the affidavit, that prior to this incident happening, he did go to the bathroom. He was there for about 20 minutes. When he got back to his seat, he started complaining that his stomach was upset. He pulled a blanket over himself, and that's when the popping noise was heard, an odor, and his pants leg and the wall of the airplane caught on fire. And a passenger apparently grabbed a syringe from him because the syringe was smoking, threw it to the floor. Again, federal defenders, those two people who are going to be representing him during the course of these hearings, they want to search that plane. They want to take a look at exactly what is there and what happened. But clearly he was talking to people. The flight attendants asked him what he had in his pocket. He responded, quote, an explosive device, unquote. Drew?
All right, Deb Farrick, let's see if we can turn that tape around, guys, and get more of what actually was said in that courtroom. But in the meantime, I want to go back to Nick Robertson. Nick, we just heard about this rather strange, I guess you would call it a court appearance, in which the man said he needed an attorney because he didn't have any money, and that leads to this man's family, and the fact that the family may have reported this fella as suspicious to authorities. They were certainly concerned about him, and also said that he had kind of disowned his own family.
Indeed, he seems to have indicated to his family that they would no longer be able to reach him because he was getting rid of his cell phone chip going on a journey to Yemen. The family obviously very concerned, contacting U.S. authorities. It is interesting, of course, that the family, if they had passed on the information as they've described, that he was still able to board an aircraft to the United States, apparently without additional checks, without raising any concern and any alarm. That also after he, by his own admission, apparently had been to Yemen and also coming from Nigeria as well, a country where it is known, certainly to British customs officials here in the United Kingdom, that it's a route for smuggling drugs and illicit money trades out of Africa. So it's the sort of route and the sort of background, if you will, that should have been raising alarms. And his family do seem to have done their best to set those alarm bells ringing themselves because of their concern for him. And that concern seems to have been sort of established when he was living here in the summer of June 2008, when he finishes his mechanical engineering degree at the University College here in London, which is literally 10 minutes walk away from this luxury apartment building behind me. He told his family that he wanted to go to Saudi Arabia or Cairo to continue his studies, two places where he could get further or he could get more religious education. And this is already setting off alarm bells for the family, not the son that had come to start to study at the university here in 2005. Apparently, while here in the United Kingdom, he picked up ideas that wanted him to further his understanding, further his knowledge of Islam, leading him to Saudi Arabia, Cairo, as he described to his family, Drew.
And Nick, you know, based on your reporting over the last several years, this is not out of the realm of what's been going on. A rich kid, he goes to school in London, he becomes radicalized, he has access to money, and then somehow or another he adopts this kind of a terrorism bent.
Absolutely, and not just a rich kid. He studied in mechanical engineering. That requires a certain level of education, and that has been the MO, if you will, the modus operandi that's happened several times here in London and elsewhere in Europe, that you have a particularly well-educated young man from a Muslim family who comes to university here in London, who listens to some of the radicalizing speeches that can be heard quite easily and quite freely here in Britain. Indeed, some radicalizers in the past decade have targeted universities here and recruited young men who then gone away to partake in terror attacks or plot and plan terror attacks from what they've learned here at university.